Good afternoon, everyone. We'll be ready to start in about 1 or 2 minutes. We're still getting people logged on. Thanks. Again, welcome, everyone. We're just waiting a couple minutes. We still have a lot of people logging on, so we'll be with you in just a few. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. We want to thank everyone for participating in the Appalachian Community Development Grant webinar. We appreciate you taking your valuable time to learn more about this program. On behalf of the DeWine administration, I'm so happy to be here today with you and get this program off the ground. We know that together we have a lot of work to do for our region and a great opportunity thanks to the DeWine Youth State Administration and our legislature, and we're excited about it. I'm John Carey, Director of the Governor's Office of Appalachia. Today we're going over the guidelines that were released last week. We'll also cover some of the resources that are available to you as you plan your projects and an overview of the scoring rubric. Throughout the webinar, we'll be working to answer some of the questions that have already been sent to us. And at the end, we'll have a question and answer session where you can ask any additional questions that you may have. There is a question and answer chat box on the screen. We encourage you to submit your questions as we go, and we'll address those at the end. One note is that there are some folks have submitted their questions through Eventbrite, and we don't have the ability to respond back through Eventbrite, so please use your chat box on your screen for questions, and we will get back to you with those. And any questions that we don't answer during the webinar, we will answer, and we also put them on our frequently asked questions page. The goal of the program is transformational change, visible and sustainable change. To achieve that, we've selected areas which projects can have the most impact in their communities: downtown infrastructure, healthcare, and workforce. Infrastructure is downtown redevelopment, transformational Main Street change, and other activities listed in the guidelines. Infrastructure is not constructing road or bridges or water or sewer lines. However, these can be a portion of other larger projects that fall into any of these other categories. Healthcare can be a school-based clinic, expanding or establishing farmers markets in your downtown. Workforce is funding and establishing training programs that work for residents in your community. There is no one size fits all for this program. We intend it to be that way because there's no one size fits all project for a region. Every community and county is unique, and we want you to work on projects that work for you. Governor DeWine has been very clear in his remarks. He wants us to be locally driven. While you're developing these projects, keep in mind that they must be ARPA eligible. ARPA means American Rescue Plan Act, and they must be compliant with House Bill 377, the law that was passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. There's two tests. First, it has to be ARPA eligible, and it has to be compliant with the law. So something can be ARPA eligible and not funded because it's not compliant with the law, or vice versa. If it's compliant with the law, but it's not ARPA eligible, it's not an eligible project. We've given examples of some things that are eligible, but we encourage you to view the resources page and the ARPA information and House Bill 377 for more detailed specifics on what this money can and cannot fund. So at this point, it's my pleasure to introduce Julia Hinton, our Chief of Staff for the Governor's Office of Appalachian.
Thank you, John. I'm going to share a little more about eligibility and go through the funding information to answer some of the questions we've been receiving about these topics. Let's start first with who is eligible to apply. We've been encouraging communities to work together to create regionally diverse and transformational projects. But how will those partnerships work with the applications and who can apply? Each application must have an eligible lead applicant. Eligible lead applicants must be a local unit of government or government-related entity, which includes townships, villages, cities, port authorities, county governments, and council of governments. Educational institutions and nonprofits are also eligible lead applicants, but must have documented support from the local units of government where the project is located. This can be a letter of support or a memorandum of understanding, but it must be documented with the grant applications. The lead applicant does not have to be located within the 32 county Appalachian region. However, they must have previously established operations, and the project must be exclusively within the 32 county Appalachian region. For applications with more than one eligible unit of government or other partners, projects must determine a lead applicant to serve as the primary administrator on the project. Lead applicants are the single point of contact and fiscal agent for the project application. Lead applicants will be responsible for distributing funds to project partners and ensuring project compliance. For-profit entities and state-based county agencies are eligible partners for the program, but they must establish a subrecipient agreement or MOU with eligible lead applicants. Next, we'll talk about the funding. Nearly $500 million is available in total. Funding is available to projects in and only in the 32 Appalachian County region. This region is defined by the Appalachian Regional Commission. Again, applying entities do not have to be fully located within the region, but project activities must be exclusively within the 32 county region. There are two types of funding, planning and development. Let's first talk about planning. In the 32 Appalachian County region. Planning funding.
Hang on, I don't think we're on. We still on. Hang on.
Shaking her head, yes.
Planning funding is available in two ways. The first is community planners. One use of planning funding will be utilized to procure planning professionals. In the creation of this program, we heard that many communities struggle with capacity to complete applications and plan large projects. To help communities with this, we are utilizing the Appalachian Planning Grants to provide community planners to help with the development and coordination of projects. The Department of Development currently has a request for proposals out to procure these planners. That's available on our program website. Planners are not available yet. More information will be available after the first round of grants have been awarded. That's early 2023. Communities do not need to apply for these planners. Planning professionals will be free and available to all Appalachian communities and projects. Planners will serve as the main planning entities for the development grant projects. You do not need to procure your own planning entities. Planners will be available through the life of the program to assist with project planning and applications. Planners cannot be lead applicants, but they can help with applications. Additional information will be shared on the program webpage and to GOA's email list when available. A second type of planning funding is available through technical assistant grants. This is the only type of planning funding that communities can apply for and receive funds for. Communities do not have to apply for or receive a technical assistance grant to apply for or receive a development grant. These are for communities looking for help funding their planning efforts and to help communities get their planning off the ground. They can be used for administrative costs, preliminary engineering costs, legal fees, and more. If communities do not want to utilize ODOD's procured planners or know of planning expenses, they can apply for technical assistance grants. $250,000 will be available per county. Funds are not given for any county and not reserved for a single entity. Communities must submit applications and technical assistance funds will be competitive. Any communities looking to be part of a project can apply, but we encourage communities to partner and develop with a lead applicant. Projects with multiple counties or lead applicants that serve multiple counties can split their requests between each county involved. Technical assistance grants are only available in the first round. After that, any planning funding not utilized will go back into the general pots of funds and be used for development grants, which is the second type of grant funding. It's Appalachian Development Grants. These are for the big transformational projects that we've been talking about. For that reason, there is no funding cap on what you can request in applications. However, there is a $1 million minimum to ensure that communities are thinking big and projects are transformational in scope. Applications will be available in multiple rounds. In the first round, concurrent with the Appalachian Technical Assistance Grant, $50 million in funding will be available. For all rounds, projects must be completed by October 31st, 2026. There will be no extensions on projects unless the federal government extends ARPA deadlines. Applications will open next Wednesday, November 2nd. There is no set time for the application to go live. Our team will work to get the application online and link on the webpage that day, and we will notify the email list when it is live. If you are not already on the email list, that sign up can be found on our program webpage. Applications for both technical assistance and development grants are due December 9th at 5 p.m. Late applications will not be accepted. Please ensure that you have correctly submitted your application by that time. And now, Austin Ward, our program administrator, will share more information on program resources and scoring.
Thank you, Julia. I'll be sharing more about the resources that are available to your communities to help make stronger projects and give you a better chance of being funded. The first of those resources is our local development districts, or LDDs. For those of you who have not worked with the LDDs, these organizations are regional economic development organizations that we work with on other GOA and ARC funding opportunities. Their teams have resources to support planning and development of applications for this program, and we will work in partnership with ODOD's procured planners. The local development districts can also serve as eligible lead applicants for project applications. We encourage anyone interested in submitting any type of application to connect with their local development district. Many of them have upcoming information sessions available on each LDD's webpage. The links to those are available on our webpage for the program. Speaking of our program webpage, that is where you will find the additional resources for this program. These resources are community and state partners who offer programs and services that align and complement the goals of this program. You do not have to utilize any of these, but you will have a stronger application if you choose to do so. A couple of things I want to highlight on this page. Projects must be ARPA eligible and align with the legislation laid out in House Bill 377. Links to both of those are available on our resources webpage. We encourage you to reference these as you go about your planning projects and submitting your applications. The final topic we want to share is regarding the scoring of applications. Projects are not first come, first served. They will be competitive and they will be scored. We have posted the scoring rubrics for the technical assistance and development grants on our program webpage. Use the rubric as a guide when you're completing your application. They will tell you exactly what we are looking for and what we will be scoring you on. For example, when deciding components for your project, consider the scores assigned to each. You do not have to have a project that includes community development infrastructure, healthcare, and workforce, but your project will be stronger if you do. When you are including your partnerships, not only are we looking for the quantity of partnerships, more importantly, we're looking for the quality of the partnerships. Make sure you are detailing in your application what each partner brings to the table and what their role in the partnership will be. We've said it before, we want communities to focus on planning. Create your plans with these scoring rubrics in mind. If you are applying for technical assistance grants, those will be competitive, but we understand that you are still in your early planning phase. For that reason, scoring is more lenient than it is for the development application. The Technical Assistance Grant is an opportunity to get funding to explore possibilities for your development grants. Again, not everyone will need these resources. ODOD's procured planners will be free and available to all who apply. Additionally, development grant applications do not have to match previous technical assistance grant applications. The final note is on the budget section of the scoring rubric. You may notice that we've allocated quite a bit of points to the budget section. As we've said it before, $500 million is a lot of money for Appalachia. We want to handle these funds responsibly, and we know that you want the same. You will score higher if you can show that you have the capacity for managing your project and the funds, and you demonstrate that to us in these narratives. You will also score higher if you are utilizing other program resources. The other funding sources section is important. These other funds do not have to be awarded yet, but if you are applying for grants and funding and other funding opportunities, you are going to score higher because we know that you're taking your partnerships seriously. It does not necessarily matter if that other funding is $5 million or $5,000. The amount of the other funding source is going to score the same. It's the number of and the quality of the other partnerships that matter. With that, I'll turn it back over to Director Carey for closing.
Thank you, Austin. Thank you, Julia. Now, the most important part is question and answers. Madison Knight, who is our office manager, will be asking us a question. So, Madison, what's our first question?
Does the project need to be shovel ready when making an application?
For round one, it specifically says it needs to be shovel ready within 90 days. That means you're ready to bid, you're ready to start construction, or you have a program that needs, they'll be able to run up and operating. And for the next development grant, it means the same thing. Julia, do you want to elaborate on that?
No, for the second round is also your implementation or development grants need to be shovel ready as well within 90 days.
Does a regional water treatment plant improvement project serving 2 counties qualify for funding?
Water and sewer projects are not eligible for this program. And the only way water and sewer or broadband projects would be funded is if they are in connection with a different downtown or something related to a different component.
I would like just to add to that was just to do a commercial for our other programs. We work with the local development district, so it could potentially be for funding through the Environmental Protection Agency would have funds. So I encourage you to think about that funding. And through our local development districts, we'd have funding that could be complementary to that. So that may be something you want to consider.
What would be the difference between this webinar and the info sessions we have scheduled in person?
Both the webinar and the local information sessions that will be located throughout the region, I would see them as complementary to each other. You are welcome to attend both. We will try to cover most of the same material. The run through and the content should be the same. Obviously, you might have some different questions here or there, but that's up to you.
One thing maybe there, I think some of the local development districts are planning some networking activities after the information session, which may just be as valuable as actual information sessions. So
When will second round of a development grants deadline be?
I'm gonna let you answer that, Julie. You got that in front of you.
The second round of development grants, the deadline would be December of 2023. Those applications would open in November of 2023.
Can these funds match ODOT TAP grants?
Match is not required, but partnering with ODOT for TAP grant funds is an allowable, and we would actually request that you do that if it's possible, as partnering will make your grant funding go farther.
Would there be punishment if not partnering with other communities?
This would be a good time to highlight the scoring rubric. You can see the parts of the rubric that focus on the points allocated to how communities partner, and not just the components or the specific project activities that you're focusing on, but multi-community, multi-county projects will score a lot higher than single or even one or two or three individual communities within one county.
Will there be a different application for the technical assistance funds?
Yes, there is a different application for technical assistance funds. That application was opening up on November 2nd and will be due December 9th. And it's a lot more, the technical assistance grant is to help you apply for the development grant. So you will have a lot more leeway, but you still need to identify potential partners and put together a budget, what you want to use the money for. And the minimum score for total points available on a technical assistance grant is 100, and you have to have at least 60 points to be approved. Doesn't mean if you get above 60 points you'll be approved, because it's a competitive program, but you have to have at least 60 points. So we encourage people to applicants to identify partners and put together technical assistance grants, so you'll be more ready to apply for the development grant in November of next year.
Can this be leveraged with power?
Yes, it definitely can be leveraged with power funding. Again, match is not required, but it would just help your project go along farther.
Can one county submit multiple applications?
Take that one.
Sure.
You can submit multiple applications. What we do not recommend is that if you're planning to phase a project, and you want to do planning but have part of it ready to go, we do not want that application to be submitted for both planning and for the implementation piece. We're asking that you only apply for the planning first in the first round, and then the implementation in the second round.
Regarding the 250,000 per county planning, can you explain how two counties planning a project together would stack funding?
So the 250,000 per county, as we said, is not necessarily meant for any specific entity. It'll depend on the volume and the requested amounts we get from applicants. The maximum, if it is a 2-county application for a technical assistance grant, you could stack the 250,000 from both counties' maximum and theoretically apply for 500,000. You wouldn't necessarily be entitled to that, obviously, as it is competitive, but the way to get more than 250,000, if you would need it, would be to have a multi-county application with documented support from local officials in both of those counties.
Just for clarification, educational institutions cannot be lead agencies, but can partner with local government entities for projects.
No, actually, educational institutions can be eligible lead applicants.
About the 250 per county, is that the limit for the technical assistance grant?
That's correct. There's 250,000 per county for the technical assistance. However, for planning, you can use the planners. And so just remember that that resource is available to anyone.
If the lead applicants don't need to submit a planning grant application, what are they required to do to apply? I'm assuming for the development.
The application will be open on November 2nd, so they just need to have an outline plan that that's competitive within the $50 million. We do have $50 million for round one for those projects that are already ready, which means they're shovel ready. You can go to construction in 90 days, and you'll submit the application on November 2nd. It'll come out the same day as the technical assistance grants. If whatever the remainder from the technical assistance grants or the round one development grants will go back into the pot for more money. So we'll have at least $450 million for projects in round two for development projects, and we anticipate we'll have more than that.
Do you need a specific project for the technical assistance grant?
You do not need a specific project for the technical assistance grants, but it is your opportunity to get your ducks in a row in order to help with the planning process. So you don't specifically need everything outlined at that point.
Can administrative expenses take place outside of the Appalachian counties? In other words, can admin work take place in Franklin County for a project in the Appalachian County?
You know, the funds are for exclusively in the 32 Appalachian counties.
That's in House Bill 377, which is on our website.
Does a development proposal need to include each one of the funding priorities?
Does it have to have each of the funding priorities?
Each of the components.
A project does not have to have all three. However, as you can see in the rubric, those will be added together. If you truly have a component from all three, you'll get the maximum number of points. Obviously, the rest of the rubric, you could still score highly on everything else and theoretically make up for that difference, but it is something to keep in mind.
Am I correct that round one is to request assistance from a planner, or technical assistance funds in preparing plans for round 2. You can do one or the other.
Yeah, for round 1, you're not applying for planning grants or planners because you can't apply for a grant that's shovel ready and do planning at the same time. But so those two are separate. You can apply for technical assistance grant. The planners that Julia talked about earlier, they will be available here. So that you'll work with your local development district or us directly to request the assistance from the planners. You don't have to apply for that. That's not a competitive thing.
Are public schools considered local governments?
So our educational institutions are eligible lead applicants, and that would mean a city, local exempted village school district, a joint vocational school district, educational service centers, chartered non-public schools, and institutions of higher education.
How much influence do LDDs have on the grants? If LDDs are focused on these grant funds for other areas of interest, but our project is not in line with our group's considered project, how will this be handled?
The local development districts, there's not a scoring component that involves assistance from the local development districts, whether or not they're the lead applicant or a partner. However, the resources that they can provide and the networking opportunities through the local development district are where the value is in eventually getting to those points on the scoring rubric. So you are not required to work with your local development district in any capacity, but we just encourage that you look into that as a resource to help you as you go throughout your planning and your application.
Do projects need to physically be located in multiple counties, or does a project that reaches in other counties qualify for regional impact?
There could be projects that would reach into other counties that would qualify for regional impact, so that would count.
Will you need support from local government authorities in each county when engaging in the planning process?
Yes, it's very important to us that the local communities are engaged because it's locally driven. So to be honest, we don't want an entity coming into the region and applying on behalf of counties and they're not being involved. So we want this to be the local folks making the decision, not an entity that's coming in and deciding what's good for the local folks.
Is there a requirement for the local government applicant to competitively bid to select partners for the application?
Can you state that again for me, Madison?
Is there a requirement for the local government applicant to competitively bid to select partners for the application?
So if the applicant is performing any sort of construction or any activity that would require federal procurement for any other program, the rules would be the same for this one. We have the link to all of the ARPA guidelines. A lot of those are similar to federal procurement guidelines within, like I said, within other programs. So I would refer to that. And maybe else.
No, I think the question was a little confusing because it made it sound like you have to competitively bid partners, and you do not have to competitively bid partners. That would just be for construction purposes under this grant.
This one, not sure if they understood. Did you say that the technical assistance grant and the development grant don't have to be related to one goal? They could be two different goals.
That's correct. They could be multiple goals.
Is the construction of a food bank an eligible project?
It wouldn't be a standalone project, but it could be in conjunction with other types of projects.
when does round 2 development grants begin?
Those applications will open, I believe, I said,
November.
November of 2023.
Will the slides also be posted on the website?
Well,
Yes, we can do that.
Can you go into more detail on what infrastructure projects would be eligible?
I think if you look at the guidelines that are posted on our website, that'll give you a better idea, because if we go through these on the webinar, we're probably going to leave something out. And there is, even though there are several things listed like downtown revitalization, trails, arts and history projects, there could be other things that we have not included in that list. So I would refer you to the guidelines.
We will also have a FAQ document posted after this where we've recorded these questions on top of questions emailed into us. That will give you a good idea. You'll be able to look through projects there. Would a new health department be eligible project?
No, it would not be eligible because it's a government building, and this is more for transformational change. So we're not able to do government buildings such as courthouse, municipal buildings, health departments.
Are loans eligible?
loans are not an eligible ARPA expense for this grant.
If a property needs to be purchased for the project, would the real estate process be considered shovel-ready?
I think so.
That's, we'll look into that and get back on, get back and place that on our website with an answer. We need to check with OBM.
To follow that, can grant funds be used for property acquisition?
They can be used for property acquisition. We just don't know about the timing for that.
Yeah, remember, just like any other grant program, anything that happens outside of the grant award period is ineligible. So if you were to purchase a building tomorrow before you got anything awarded, that's not a reimbursable expense.
Can the same organization submit an implementation grant in the first round and also have another project piece in the planning grant?
That is eligible. They can apply for more than one. Again, I would not apply for the same project if it's a phase that you're looking to do. If you're looking to do planning and implementation for the same project, please just apply for planning the first round.
Definition of shovel-ready for capital versus non-capital projects.
I think, go ahead.
Yeah, capital projects is 90 days within grant award. And non-capital is that if you were granted it after the grant award, that you would be up and running the non-capital project within 90 days.
Are newly constructed affordable workforce housing projects eligible for funding?
I think we just have to see the details of the project.
Yeah, there are some eligible pieces of that. So we would just need a little more detail probably around the project. Planning would be useful during that case, just to make sure that we can assist in the process.
Would creating a historic district within a village be included in infrastructure along with revitalizing old buildings and businesses?
Yes.
Would journalism be considered an infrastructure project?
No.
In the case of a planning grant application from a nonprofit in which one of the proposed activities is site selection across the region, would the requirement for local government support be met by a letter of support from the local government entity where the nonprofit is headquartered, or each site across the region?
It would have to be each site in the region. So if you were applying for something in County X, and that's the main focus, but you want to apply for Y and Z, you also have to contact Y and Z and have them part of the process.
Can some funding be used for seed money to pay for a salary for 6 months to get a program up and generating revenue?
Yeah, it has to be sustainable. So we would have to get more details about the specific question because we don't want to say yes or no. But one thing that would be important is that if the salary was for 6 months, to show how it's sustainable after that.
Some administrative costs are eligible, but it depends on the project and how we fit in those activities and whether they're defined as an administrative cost and what that limit is. So that would be could change depending on the specific application.
Would the purchase and/or development of low-income or elderly housing qualify for this funding opportunity?
No, I would say generally no. Again, we'd have to know the details. Their housing in the downtown area, which we've identified, is something that could be an eligible activity, but just standalone projects that would not be qualified, be eligible, is what I'm trying to say.
Concerning Main Street redevelopment projects, would there be funding to renovate the entire building or just the facade?
It would be for both.
Would a countywide fire and EMS training facility qualify?
The training would qualify, but building a new building for the building would be something we'd have to review. The training, EMS, safety training, fire training is definitely eligible.
If preliminary engineering is an eligible cost for development grants and you apply for a development grant, then how is the project shovel ready?
We would recommend that you would use the planning period and the technical assistance grants to do the preliminary engineering. It would time-wise be more efficient to use the preliminary engineering costs for technical assistance this first round. We know that it's a tight time period to turn it around. So that is our recommendation.
Are there steps people should follow to seek support from the remaining 22 million of planning funds?
Oh, not at this point. I think that Governor DeWine and Director Mahalik have those planning funds available if they're needed, but there aren't any steps at this point that you need to take.
Does an applicant have to go through an LDD to get these local government approvals?
They do not have to go through their local development district. Again, the local development district is there to provide a resource and to assist. And so they are a good resource for all communities and projects to utilize. We would recommend that.
Do they need to partner with a state agency in the application, such as ODE, ODH?
Okay, Austin.
No, they would not be required to have a state agency partner. Obviously, if there's that agency has a program or a funding source that would complement it, we would encourage them to at least look into that, but there is no requirement.
Are community parks eligible if they are not located near an uptown area?
They could be, yes. It would just depend on the project again. I hate to keep saying that, but it really depends on the total package. If you just applied with a community park and it wasn't part of a plan that was transformational, then it would not be. But if it's part of a transformational regional wide plan, it could be.
Will there be a round 3, and can you elaborate on allocations in the rounds?
I think it's too early to determine if there'll be a round 3, but we know there'll be one round of planning and technical assistance funds only. So if there is if all the funding is not used by the second round at the end of 2023, we potentially could open up for more rounds. We're just not expecting to at this time.
Can government-owned property be funded?
No.
Yeah, that's kind of a general question.
Yeah.
So it's possible for the government to buy, for example, a building in downtown for renovation.
But a courthouse would not be eligible.
No, a courthouse is not allowable, but a village or city or county could buy a building as part of the downtown project, work with their CIC or Port Authority to renovate it. But government-owned services buildings are not part of the grant program.
Are home and community-based services, healthcare specifically, eligible?
The training would definitely be eligible. I'm not sure what the question, paying for home and community-based healthcare services would not be, but training definitely would be. So we would need a little bit more detail to that question.
Bike paths that go along counties, would that be eligible?
Bike paths are ineligible. They would be considered eligible.
The guidelines include large-scale economic development site infrastructure as an eligible downtown redevelopment activity. Can you expand on what is meant by that?
Should we take that one? Yeah, a large-scale economic development project. It is listed with the downtown activities, but it doesn't have to be in the downtown. Ohio, it's had some recent successes with large sites, with Intel and with Honda. So the thought behind this is industrial sites, 500 acres or more, that they'll be eligible for the program. So it does not have to be in the downtown, though. It could be anywhere as part of the application.
Would the purchase of medical equipment be eligible for this grant?
It could be eligible if it's medical equipment for a school-based health clinic or other types of projects like that. It could be eligible.
What information is needed by December 9th if using community planners?
No information is needed specifically by December 9th. There is no application for the planners. More information will be available on the webpage once the planners are in place.
This is about the 50 million. Is the entire amount available for all projects or per project in round 1?
It's all projects. So it's a total of 50 million. So the awards cannot exceed 50 million for the first round. If we don't receive all the applications up to 50 million, then the remainder will go back into the other pot for round 2.
Can we count a TAP grant that's already committed as part of this?
Yes. Again, match is not required, but partnering with programs like that would benefit your application.
Are rail line projects permissible if they include an adjacent trail?
They can be, yes.
Can you apply for both a TA grant and development grant at the same time?
Not for the same project.
Not for the same.
Would a letter from county commissioners work for government letter of support?
For the technical assistance grant, yes, that would be probably at least a minimum for that. In the development application, there is a subrecipient agreement that is more formal and more required to detail exactly what all of the activities and where all of the funds would be going towards.
Can a project apply for development grant funding and be included in planning grant application for consideration of a potential future development grant investment? In other words, if an application is submitted for 2022 development, is that the only, oh, it disappeared. I believe it was on the same lines as how they can go about applying the application.
If you are looking to do a planning grant and an implementation grant, I would hold off and just do the planning grant the first round.
If one of our board members is part of a regional council of governments, could they be our lead applicant?
That would be a legal question.
Yeah, we'd have to get back on that. I don't think the single board member would be considered the council of governments, but we'll check with our legal on that one.
If that's regarding whether the conflict of interest, if the board member is also on the local development district, that specific part of it would not necessarily be a problem. The rest of the question would depend.
Can a lead agency represent multiple projects?
Yes.
Would these funds include cost for cameras and more security infrastructure for local schools within the county?
I don't believe so. I think there's other resources that are available through public safety and Department of Education. I would want to say completely no, because if it's a health, the school-based health clinic, and that's something they need to be able to operate with that project, then that would potentially could be eligible.
Can this funding be used to reduce lead service lines?
That potentially could fall under a healthcare component type of project. I wouldn't have it be a standalone project, but it could definitely be a portion of a project.
And we do have other programs of Department of Development that we could look at. One, and this might be a good opportunity to talk about this. So if you have project ideas, they don't all have to fit in this grant program. So if they don't fit, we still want to hear about them so we can help potentially navigate them with our regular programs or have other programs within the Department of Development or some of our other sister agencies.
For communities that plan to submit a development grant in round 2, will design plans need to be completed before the fall of 2023? And can community planners assist with the plan development, or will communities need to retain an engineer or architect to prepare?
Yes to both of those. The community planners will be able to offer some of those services, and they would need to be completed prior to the 2023 round.
Trail development, I believe we already answered that question. Is there a specific project delivery system required? Single prime, multi-prime, CMR, etc.?
No. No, we don't have that as part of our guidelines.
Would a nonprofit applicant proposing a project to benefit the entire Appalachian region require a letter of support from all counties served?
Yes.
And again, if that's a technical assistance grant, then a more informal or letter of some sort of documented support is required. But again, on that development application, the subrecipient agreement would need to include all of those partners and those communities served.
And again, I just want to reiterate this. We don't want an organization speaking for Ashtabula County, for example, and they have had no contact with them and apply on their behalf. So we want these to be locally driven. So we don't want the organization making the decision. We want the locals to make the decision.
To what extent can private companies advocate and educate eligible institutions about this grant program? Who should the grant candidate questions be directed to?
You can direct those questions to our page, and the information is available to the public to share.
Do the technical assistance grants include architectural fees in addition to engineering fees?
Both of those would be eligible expenses for the technical assistance grant.
Can these grant funds use a U.S. Department of Transportation RAISE project as match?
Yeah.
Again, match is not required, but partnering with any ODOT program or other Department of Transportation program would make your application stronger.
Any questions related to whether our funds will match with another program that you may be applying to, you would obviously need to direct those to that source. But again, for our program, match is not required.
What percentage of project funding will go to the development district?
Yeah, we work with the development districts. So they're already in our budget from the Governor's Office of Appalachia. We're a very small office, so we already have a strong relationship with them. We have used some contractors to help provide technical assistance, but unless local development districts apply, they will continue to offer technical assistance and we'll pay for that. But unless local development districts apply on behalf of communities, then we would know the answer to that. But that would be, they'd be applying on behalf of communities, not for themselves.
Will urban agriculture, community gardens, and pollinator patches qualify since they directly relate to revitalization, community health, and workforce development?
Not sure I understand
I
the
think-
question.
Yeah, if you wanted to do a community garden in the downtown or a pollinator, it wouldn't be a standalone project, but they, if they're part of a downtown project or a health project at the school, it could be eligible.
Could you explain the competitive bid process? Specifically, how can a consultant be involved or write the planning grant and still be eligible to bid on the development project?
So if I understand correctly, if you're looking to become a planner, you're going to want to look at our RFP, which is linked from our page. I think that was one question, but then I believe there was a question about bidding, and it is our understanding that if you bid during a technical assistance grant phase and then later apply for an implementation grant, you would not need to rebid those services for construction. They would be within the 2-year planning and would be eligible without having to rebid those projects.
Does state prevailing wage or federal prevailing wage apply to budgets?
ARPA guidelines go deep into detail on this. I won't do that on this call, but I would definitely encourage you to read the final rule that we've listed on our webpage from Treasury. But the Davis-Bacon is not a requirement for construction projects, but if you choose not to do Davis-Bacon, there are other requirements that could in total take more time and energy and paperwork. So I would definitely, if you decide you don't need to do Davis-Bacon, that you make sure you are able to and willing to complete those other construction requirements.
Also, this is where the local development districts are a good resource. They can help you determine what is the best source to use.
What will the process look like for a community to access a development procured planner?
Yes, it's very simple. You will just contact local development districts, or you can email us directly on our page. It's not a competitive process, so we're just procuring those planners now. The RFP is out on the webpage. So we'll have a clearer answer to that, but if you keep in touch with us with local development districts, we can make sure if you're interested in that we can provide it.
We will email that information out as well on our blast when it's available.
Will the second phase funding be spread out evenly among counties, or will it depend on applications?
They're competitive applications, so it will not be spread out equally between the 32 counties.
How does an organization be part of the assistance that is provided to the region, but not as an applicant?
The procured planners that our agency will procure are available and free to any eligible organizations in the 32 counties, and they can get you in touch with other potential applicants. And again, we'll encourage you to use your LDD as a resource to find out what's going on around. But yes, to reiterate, you do not have to apply for a technical assistance grant to utilize the procured planners.
Can individuals apply as a lead applicant?
No.
What type of construction projects would be eligible?
That's kind of a broad question. Renovation of downtown properties are eligible. Construction for infrastructure for a large industrial park or for the downtowns are eligible. School-based health clinics, trails, bike trails are eligible. There could be other things that are eligible. Would probably be better if they have something specific in mind to let us know. We can discuss it with them and give them an answer.
Can a county apply for both technical assistance and the use of a community planner?
Yes, we encourage that.
And again, the community planners that will be procured by development won't require any action from the locals. Those will be made available by development to the locals.
Could you provide any clarity on how multiple downtowns might work together for regional impact?
I don't necessarily want to give examples. I have examples in my head, but I know in the Buckeye Hills region, they've worked together with vibrant communities. Think about what your communities have in common. Would it be a bike trail? Could you connect your state parks and your communities with the bike trail? Is it the river? Look for those kind of commonalities, which would be mutual beneficial to you to achieve and are transformational.
Does final engineering and design qualify as an eligible implementation project?
If that is final engineering and design is an eligible cost.
Are local health departments an eligible lead applicant, or would they need to apply through an LDD or county commissioners?
It depends on what the project is. So it would just, that would be detail that we need to work with them, what their project is when they're
State
thinking about.
agency institutions are not eligible. They can partner.
Can a nonprofit healthcare institution be a lead applicant?
Yes.
To confirm, Ohio Department of Development contracted planners are not eligible to serve as a lead applicant for development grants.
That's correct.
Would a pedestrian bridge connecting to a park or natural resources be eligible for infrastructure?
Yes, that would be an eligible project. I would encourage you to not have that be a standalone project. But yes,
What are the allowable administrative fees or is there an indirect cost rate?
it's not an indirect cost rate, but the eligible entities are listed within our guidelines for the costs that are considered eligible. And I would recommend you look at that and the ineligible costs. That would be located on page 5 of the guidelines.
There will be a curing process as well. As we get these applications in, we will work out minute details such as that. If you have very minor budgetary discrepancies or exceed a certain limit on a certain line item, that wouldn't necessarily render your whole application invalid. We would work with you to straighten those issues out and in order to be compliant with ARPA and state law.
Once a community receives a planning grant award, will communities use the approved Ohio Department of Development planners to do the planning work, or will RFPs be issued for planning firms to bid on?
There currently is a RFP on linked on our website for the procurement of the planners. If you are an interested planner, we recommend that you would visit that link and review that RFP. For communities that are interested in utilizing the procured planners, there will not be an application process. We will have more information on how to obtain those planners to help you with the process on our site as soon as possible.
Would it affect scoring if using federal grants to pay for planning and then this program for implementation?
It would be a benefit to partner with a federal agency on a project, so that would benefit your project score.
Can you use funds to help improve private property within the community?
Yes.
Can only one entity per county request funding, or can different lead entities from a county request funds?
Multiple entities can request funding from a county.
What if planners are located outside the 32 county area?
They are still eligible.
Can a community include multiple activities under one project application umbrella?
Yes, we would absolutely encourage that. And I think as you go through the scoring rubric, you will see that those would be beneficial depending on the activity, would probably be a strong application based on the points that could score.
Will the procured planners be available for the first round of development applications? If not, will an exception be made for these applications?
No, unfortunately, the procured planners will not be available until probably January.
The other thing to that is these are in the language, these are projects that are already ready. So theoretically, they should not need planning. So if you do need planning, you might want to think about using technical assistance on fly in round 2.
Can the development grant funding include not only capital to create infrastructure, but also include maintenance costs of maintaining the new infrastructure up until 2026.
Projects need to be sustainable, so you will want to have a plan in place when you're creating or developing your application that outlines sustainability. I think the grant could potentially cover some costs, but sustainability is something that each community needs to think of. These are one-time funds, and that is a big piece of the rubric and the application process.
Can technical assistance funding be used to hire a grant writer for the development grant proposal?
Yes, that is one cost that we definitely have in mind that we expect to see for technical assistance grants.
Can AMLR funds be leveraged with this?
Yes. AMLR is abandoned mine land for economic revitalization, and those communities that are able to take advantage of AMLR, that we would welcome that.
Can the technical assistance funding be used to support internal planning positions in addition to the free planners procured by development?
Yes, we understand that a lot of communities may have some capacity issues, and it might be difficult to even get kind of your feet to the door. And the technical assistance funding is for that purpose, and we do encourage everyone to use our procured planner. So that's a great example.
Do all projects have to be shovel ready within 90 days?
All projects in the first round of development will need to be will need to break ground within 90 days.
Additionally, the funds must be expended by October of 2026. So that is something everyone with a development grant will need to keep in mind. So if you're not ready by the second round of funding with your development grant to break ground, you may find it difficult to complete that project within the timing of the funds.
How do consultants apply to be considered for technical assistance grants?
I'm not sure consultants would be, if it's a private consultant, they wouldn't be eligible to apply for a technical assistance grant.
The community, if a community is applying for a technical assistance grant, they can use that funding to hire a consultant, so long as all procurement rules and other guidelines are followed.
Will all planning projects need to be funded through the $250,000 per county funds, or is there other funding available for broad regional projects that would cross all counties?
Potentially there would be. That's not part of our grant process. If we do have some additional resources for planning if the need arises, but it's not part of this grant process. So if there's a large regional project that's coming forth that doesn't fit into the $250,000, is something we would need to know about, but there isn't a process to apply for it at this time.
Is it being suggested to aggregate multiple, mostly seemingly unrelated projects to hit all three areas from a single lead applicant, or should the project submitted be a cohesive project?
Either applications would be eligible, and we just would recommend that you look at the rubric. Both of those could lead you to high scoring applications depending on how you would execute that.
You could have a project that includes downtown revitalization, a bike trail, school-based health clinic, and a workforce program amongst multiple counties and tourism activities. So just as an example, you could put together a plan for your whole county instead of just a segment of it, or your whole region, I should say.
Development applications could have several subrecipients and several partners that focus on very different aspects that address eligible activities through this program. So keep that in mind.
Is this a reimbursement grant?
It is not necessarily 100% reimbursement grant. Once the grant has been awarded, we will provide a program manual that will explain that piece.
Can a multi-county project cross LDD territory?
Yes, the LDDs and county lines for this project, we definitely don't want you to see them as borders or boundaries. This program is meant to be multi-community, transformational, regional, and I know that the LDDs are definitely prepared and ready to work with their sister organizations. So I definitely don't want that to be a hindrance to anybody.
Do you need to use Department of Development procured planner to receive full points per the rubric? If so, how can we connect with those planners in advance?
Julia?
Those planners will not be available to connect with until after December. We will share more information on that process. You do not have to use our procured planners, but we do recommend, that's a free resource for every community, and we do recommend that you use them.
Under infrastructure, does this include environmental assessment and remediation?
Yes, it could.
Especially if it's part of federal requirements for construction projects, those sorts of costs would be eligible.
Is the 50 million implementation in round one a hard limit? What happens if there's more than 50 million in implementation requests?
If 50 million is the limit, so it's in the legislation, House Bill 377, that's 50 million. So I believe the legislature intended it to be 50 million for projects that are already ready and that don't need planning and are transformational, regional in nature. So the rest of the money, they want to be available for those who needed to plan and to put together projects.
For pre-engineering, will we be required to go through the RFQ process?
You will not be required to do that.
If an educational institution is the lead applicant, does it still require approval from the local county officials?
It depends on the project.
The guidelines state that for development projects, a public-private partnership is required. What kinds of private partners could be teamed to meet this criteria?
It's kind of wide open. We're waiting to hear what, for the private-public partnerships. I know Julia talked about school-based health clinics. It could be a private provider working with a school-based health clinic. It could be downtown business owner investing funds into the building and with a grant from the Appalachian Community Grant to help supplement those efforts. Could be workforce working with an employer to do training for jobs that are within the employee to get a credential that the local employer needs. Those are just some examples, but that's not limited to that.
Could a co-working space be eligible for a standalone application?
It could be, but it probably would be better if it was not part of it could be eligible, especially if it's in the downtown, but it would probably not score as well as if it was part of a bigger application.
Are partners referring to other counties, municipalities, etc., or can partners be private enterprises that help accomplish a lead applicant's development goal?
Partners can be eligible enterprises as described and are highly recommended.
Okay, and just as a note, I am going to shut the questions down. We have quite a few. So we're going to try to get through what we do have.
Yeah, any questions we don't answer, we can answer later. We'll post them on our website and frequently asked questions.
Could someone use this grant to make the community more accessible for people with disabilities?
Yes, that's definitely a cost eligible within the guidelines.
Seating and lights for community baseball park and improvements to walking and hiking trails. If all owned by a 5013C, would they be allowed?
They would be an eligible entity as well.
Does trail development as an infrastructure project include restoration and repair of an existing recreational trail?
Yes, obviously we wouldn't encourage you to build something if there's already something there to work on and renovate. So that would be, of course, depends on the specifics, but yes.
And technical assistance funds be used for acquiring permits, example, EPA.
That's a potential. That is one that I think we'd like to kind of check with legal and get back to you.
Can a statewide agency not located in the 32 counties apply for funding to plan, administer, and implement projects within the 32 counties if done in partnership with the local governments and LDDs?
Yes, they are eligible. If there is a presence in the 32 Appalachian counties, they would be eligible.
The grants are for either of the three components rather than all three. They're wanting confirmation.
This would be a good time to look at the rubric and see the points allocated to each of those three components. And I think that will kind of help answer your question and help you build an idea of what your project would look like, depending on how you want to encompass each or all three of those components.
Could a community potentially receive 2 development grants, 1 in each round? If so, then could that community also get a technical assistance grant for the second development grant?
Yeah, I think I understand it. They have a project they feel shovel ready, they want to apply for it, but they have other projects they want to apply for a community development grant, for a technical assistance grant, and for other projects, and you can do that. It may affect the scoring of the total projects, but I think there's nothing to prevent you from doing that.
And if you are looking at any type of planning for a project, please do that planning holistically. Think about it in relationship to other grants you might be applying for.
What would a workforce component in the technical assistance grant consist of?
If you are looking to hire administrators to help with a training program for your underemployed workers or a healthcare related workforce, the technical assistance could assist with costs related to administration or to legal questions that you might have in regards to a potential project around workforce.
Demolition of buildings or remediation of brownfield projects, are those eligible?
Yes.
Would development and construction of an outdoor entertainment venue be eligible?
Yes.
Are funds able to be used to renovate privately owned buildings, or do they need to be part of a port authority or other entity?
They need to partner with a public entity, but they are eligible.
If real estate is purchased or donated before the grant period begins, can that still be used as a leverage for the grant?
Yes, that would be taken into consideration.
When would awarded funds need to be expended by?
October of 2026.
Is a fire station considered a government building?
It is a municipal service and would not be eligible.
Does it make sense for cities to have a joint application to address regional infrastructure, but have their own components in their cities as well? Would they include everything into that one proposal?
That would be a perfect example of a way to apply for these grant funds.
Could a new fiber network infrastructure connecting local governments and educational buildings be eligible?
These funds are not eligible for residential broadband, but certain projects that include aspects of public Wi-Fi or downtown Wi-Fi or something linked to education could potentially be eligible, so long as it's part of a bigger plan. And obviously that would kind of depend on a case-to-case basis on what exactly the details are of that proposal.
Does capacity building around sustainable local funding fall into the infrastructure category?
I don't want to say yes or no, but I would just need more details, what that would look like.
Does railroad infrastructure for tourism qualify?
Yes, that would be an eligible application.
Can you further elaborate on eligible activities for revitalizing old buildings, mold abatement, roof repairs, interior demolition, improvements on property, tank removal?
Yeah, and then part of this, and we haven't really talked about this, when the governor and the legislature passed this law, they want visible change in the region. So obviously you want if it's a downtown building, you want it to be usable. You don't want mold or other remediation issues, but it's part of making the downtown look more visible and transformational. So 20 years from now, if they go visit Village B, they can see a difference because of the funding that was and the investment that the community made in partnership with this grant program.
Since there is no cap, if our application includes numerous activities, but the total cost is high, will you cut back and fund certain activities, or will the entire application be tossed?
We will have the opportunity to remove ineligible activities from each application, so we would not toss out an entire application if there are some activities that are ineligible.
Just to clarify, the project needs to be Appalachian exclusive, but the organization does not have to be exclusively in Appalachia. It just needs to be established.
Correct.
Would a regional training center for CDL be covered under the workforce training?
Yes, that's an eligible example.
Would vehicle purchases for other operational expenses for fleets serving public or human resources transportation be eligible?
I would have to see more details, but I don't believe that would be eligible.
If an application is not scored well early on, can it be remediated and resubmitted, or will scoring only occur once?
Scoring will only occur once.
Does demonstrated past partnership with a state agency improve scoring for a new phase of a project for this application?
That would definitely assist in the scoring process.
Do projects geared towards improving downtown revitalization need to be geographically located inside of a town or village?
No.
If an application was not awarded funds in round 2 and funding is available for a round 3, would the application automatically be reconsidered or would they have to resubmit?
We would need to resubmit the application.
Can we re-explain the competitive bid process?
The ARPA rules require procurement for this process. So all procurement, Davis-Bacon or state prevailing wage is a required piece. For construction bidding and that information, we do understand that during the planning, you could bid for those processes and you would not need to rebid if you applied later for an implementation grant.
If a project were physically located on a private land, would it be eligible for project funding if a nonprofit was a lead and a long-term contract for economic development was in place?
We would just have to, I would say that, we would just have to see the details of that. Potentially could be.
Is hospitality, DEI, and tourism training for service industry partners eligible?
That would be an eligible workforce cost, yes.
Can school district-owned property be purchased with development funding?
We'd have to see more details on that, but that potentially could be an eligible cost.
Would a recreational bike trail located within one county alone be competitive?
I would not have that be a standalone project in an application, but that could be, if it's a countywide trail, that would be considered transformational.
Yeah, the more you can partner with other counties so it connects to something else, the more competitive it's going to be.
Clarify on an earlier question, if a publicly elected school board passes a resolution of support for a planning application, that does not qualify as an indication of local government support, or would it?
It would, especially if that was a school-based health clinic and the school passed that,
They would just have to include that documentation in the
they would
application.
need to include that.
Can funding be used to expand existing programs that would fit into the parameters of this grant?
Potentially it could. It just depends on the program. If they're doing something new that's transformational.
It would not pay for services already provided.
Can you elaborate on what is considered transformational?
Well, transformational, is not an easy term, but this is why I talk about it. It is visible and it's long lasting. So it has an impact on the whole region, the Appalachian region, and people know about it. So if you have a project or projects in your grant, that this will make a real difference to the quality of life of the people that live in the project area. It'll also make it more attractive for people to move to the project area. So that's the best way I can describe transformational.
Can applications include multiple activities in the same county under one project application, or should they be separate applications?
It would be better if they were included in one application.
In regard to community health services, would mobile health vehicles and clinics be eligible?
That is an eligible cost.
If a county is looking at multiple focuses for planning dollars, should they submit one application per project or should they submit one countywide planning project and then allocate to each project appropriately.
I think that they need to, if they can do one project, one application, they can, but the allocation we made in the application. So, for example, if the county commissioners apply, they would not be making the decision who gets the funds. It would be, if they had a countywide thing, it would be the partners agreeing with them that that's the $250,000 that they want. So they would need to have that together to put in their application.
Will we send out an email when the planners have been identified and put on the website?
Yes.
Who decides how planners get assigned to communities, and do communities have a say in who plans?
We will have more information on that, but communities will be able to choose who they would like to plan with.
Is workforce housing permissible project if they are done in a historic building?
That's a potential project that would be eligible.
What happens when project impact is multiple impact of both in-state and out-of-state?
I would look at ARC Power or RISE funding if you're interested in adding to a project that would go outside of the state.
What would happen to a school-based health center funding for part of a development grant if the school district decides they do not want to partner with the awardee?
Yeah, they would not be eligible. The school district has to have buy-in with any of our projects. The partners have to be bought into the project. In other words, I can't decide I want to do a school-based health clinic in County A and just say, hey, you want, and then they not want it, just would not be eligible.
Can funding be used for partial completion of projects?
It depends on the project. If it's something that community could fund later down the road and has proof for that, that's a potential.
Is food processing equipment permitted if a company provides food production training?
That potentially could be a workforce related project.
Would the purchase of a historical downtown building and repurposing for a fire training facility be eligible part of a project?
That would be considered a workforce training and it would be eligible. And it would cover the downtown but component as well.
Would sidewalks to make a village compliant with ADA regulations be eligible?
That is an eligible. I would not make it a standalone project, but that would be an eligible activity.
Would a project that focuses on downtown revitalization score higher than a project that incorporates a trail?
The proposal, the specific proposal would need to be completely understood and reviewed, of course, but both of those activities would fall under the same priority component. So obviously then the rest of the rubric would determine what the score is in one versus the other.
Can projects include the purchase of a block of multiple properties and their subsequent revitalization?
Yes.
Would a satellite public health center be eligible if a local health department applied?
We'd have to check with OBM. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know about that. It depends on who the applicant is as well.
Can Can a primary applicant, government entity, develop a revitalization project and then sell it to a for-profit entity after implementation?
Yes.
Would an outdoor open-air museum focused on art, history, and nature be considered eligible?
Yes, that would be an eligible project.
Are there any circumstances where costs associated with an affordable housing project would qualify as an eligible activity?
There are examples that would be eligible. We would encourage, if you have questions around that, to reach out to us directly.
Would IT infrastructure for clinics, schools, or Main Street complexes be covered?
That potentially could be an eligible activity.
Would transportable training spaces be considered infrastructure?
I would consider that potentially a workforce project. I would have to see more details around the project in order to include it as a development project as well.
Will there be any additional information regarding sub-recipient agreements, examples, or outlines provided?
We can provide additional information on our resource page. We'll look into that.
Theoretically, could a lead agency deny support for a project to boost their competitive edge?
Theoretically, they could. Of course, I keep in mind that you could be damaging both projects by doing that, but it would obviously depend on the specifics of each project and who that applicant would be and where their priorities fit.
How many?
I would add to that, I would encourage those entities to work with a procured planner to help through that process. They would be able to help kind of any disagreements that might come up.
How many planners does Department of Development plan to procure?
We don't have a number for that yet.
Are park districts eligible lead applicants?
They are, yes, they are an eligible lead applicant.
For nonprofit applicants, does documented support from local governments need to come from counties or municipalities, or does that extend to entities such as the LDDs or ESCs?
Depending on the project, I would potentially look at getting documentation or support from all of the above if it makes sense for that project.
Is the clearing of trees and excavation considered the beginning of shovel ready for a construction project?
Yes, that could be.
Can you please explain the difference between technical assistance and regional planners?
Technical assistance is to help communities with capacity issues they may have in order to even apply for the grants or for development grants. Planners are there to help with the planning and application process as well. But some communities may not have capacity. They may need administrative costs to help get them to a place where they can use our procured planners. That's one of the most ready examples I have of that difference. Don't ask anything you'd add.
Do all the county projects in a planning or technical assistance grant have to be related?
They do not.
Please define private property that would be eligible.
We would need more details on the specific project to answer that.
Would a mobile clinic that would take a provider out to the community be an acceptable project?
Yes,
Would renewable energies like solar panels be eligible for public and/or private entities?
that depends on the project, but that could be an eligible expense.
If final design fees are an eligible expense, is the work of the design team considered a shovel-ready activity?
I would not consider that a shovel-ready activity, no. If you're doing a construction project, you would want to have a literal shovel ready to go in the ground. You'd want to be in that stage moving forward.
Could you use funds for eligible projects that might fall outside of the Appalachian region?
No, all activities must be within the 32 Appalachian counties.
If it is a trail, like I believe part of the question was, if it's connecting to the county line and then there's another trail on the other side, we would obviously be able to recognize the connection there, but the activity itself, project activity and activity cost can't occur outside of the 32 county region.
Can projects submit architectural fees that have already been incurred for existing projects that will be seeking funding from this program?
No.
I think we have reached the end.
All right, well, thank you, Madison. And any questions that we received that we haven't answered, we'll post them on the website. We already had some frequently asked questions that you submitted through Google Play. So these have all been great questions, and we appreciate those who've stuck it out to the very end. We look forward to working with you, and hopefully we'll see some of you at the information sessions later this week and early next week. So as we move forward, if you have any other questions, feel free to let us know through the email that we have or by visiting our webpage. And we look forward to working with all of you to have great projects for our region. So thank you and have a good day.